So if nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll, not according to me, according to this poll, that's a hate group. That's a hate group. And I don't want to have anything to do with them. And I would say, based on the current way things are going, the best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from black people.
That sounds interesting. Sounds very much like something I would hear at a Klan rally. And that happens to be Scott Adams. He was a cartoonist that created the comic Dilbert that was running in a number of publications nationwide. And well, according to the Washington Post, he decided to go on YouTube with that rant. And let's talk about the poll that Adams was referring to. So the once widely celebrated Adams, who had been entertaining extreme right ideologies and conspiracy theories for several years, was upset Wednesday by a Rasmussen poll that found a thin majority of black Americans agreed with the statement that it's okay to be white, a phrase sometimes associated with racist memes. And Adams, of course, didn't stop there. He also went off on more tirades about it, which we won't even bother, and you can go ahead and check them out online. But I can tell you that it was utterly disgusting. And also, Adams really messed around and found out what the consequences are of his racism. So the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, USA Today Network, and hundreds of newspapers were among publications that announced that they would stop publishing Dilbert after Adams' racist rant. And asked on Saturday how many newspapers still carried the strip, which is a workplace satire he had created in 1989, Adams told the Post by Monday around 0. I don't know, that sounds like too many to me, but I think Adams is getting his just desserts for his just absolutely racist and ignorant YouTube display of shenanigans. Rayyvana.
I'll say I'm actually surprised that it took this long for his comic to be discontinued in so many publications, because Scott Adams has been on my radar as like a right-wing character for a while with the outlandish, racist, transphobic things, sexist things he's been saying very publicly on his Twitter, the crazy things he's been saying. One time he tweeted out that he killed his stepson. I mean, this man is unhinged. He's been unhinged for a long time. I'm glad that they're not going to be publishing his comic anymore, but it does concern me that it took this long, considering how bigoted and how far right he's been in public for how long he's been doing it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think that they would categorize that as white male privilege, because anybody else probably would have been, capped at the knees long ago. It just also shows you that individuals who may not necessarily register on these large global maps in terms of their racism, their far right wingism, that they'll eventually get there. And so I would hold these publications accountable, as in you knew who he was. If Rayyvana knew, a lot of people knew that there was something, a little bit off about this man in terms of equity, inclusion, equality. And for him to come out with this criticism based on this very right-wing poll, I think it only looked at or interviewed maybe 1,000 people in toto, and then asking black people if it's okay to be white based on, which we know is associated with a racist meme. It's like, come on, this man did not care one way or the other. He was looking for an excuse to go ahead and advance segregation. Any final thoughts, Rayyvana?
Yeah, I also just want to add that he doubled down on Twitter after this, because you mentioned a white man can imagine experiencing consequences. So his reaction, of course, is to think he's done nothing wrong. And in one of those tweets, he claimed that he previously identified as being black for a period of his life, which, I mean, you can see his picture on the screen. I mean, this man has lost his mind. But he also mentioned that he'd been fired twice in the past for racist remarks and racism. So, I mean, this is someone who really should not have, and before he was making Dilbert. So, this is someone who has a long history of racism, right-wing bigotry, and I'd be so glad to see him go from public life and from the media.
Absolutely. I'm sure maybe the Klan will have some kind of publication. He can do cartoons there. Until then, he will continue to be a cartoon to me.